Welcome to Series 2, Episode 1 of the In Her Financial Shoes podcast. Welcome to the In Her Financial Shoes podcast with me, Catherine Morgan, founder of the Money Panel, helping you to get financially naked. Listen in each week where we talk about that taboo subject of money. Listen to brutally real-life stories, step into our guest shoes and be left feeling 100% confident and in control. Oh, and we hate financial jargon, so don't expect any here. Small steps, big wins, let's go. Hi, and welcome to the show. So we're just about to dive into Series 2, can you believe already, of the In Her Financial Shoes podcast. And this particular series is going to be focused around providing you with some information, education, and some good insights into savings and investing. Now, the reason that I've chosen to dedicate an entire series around this is for several reasons. Largely because I get lots and lots of questions from clients that I coach and from within my Facebook community, amongst other social media platforms, around, how do I begin to invest? What's the difference between saving and investing? I don't understand all the complicated jargon. Where do I begin? Lots and lots of questions around different topics about investing and saving. So I want to dedicate this particular series to really busting all the myths, all the challenges, giving you some options, talking about different methods of saving and investing. And I've got some fantastic guests lined up for this series, not just professionals, but also people, ordinary people like you and I, who have also gone through these struggles to make some good financial decisions about their future. So I'm really excited to bring this series to you as the listeners. I have written about this particular episode today is all focused around teaching children about money. Now, we've done a previous podcast episode on this, which is episode 4 in series 1, with a special guest, which was Rob Gardner. So for those of you who haven't listened to that, I would definitely suggest that you listen to that one too, because Rob also had some very interesting insights into the work that his organisation does around teaching children about money. But Will Carmichael, who is my guest on today's podcast, is the CEO of a company called Rooster Money. Now, Rooster Money is a pocket money tracking app, and the app has been designed to really help parents to take their children from their first steps in understanding the value of money to opening up their first bank account. The app has been launched since the early part of 2016, and part of its mission is to encourage people all around the world to make saving money for kids easy and fun. Now, I've been using Rooster Money actually now for just over a year, and it's a great little app. It's really colourful, it's very engaging, it gives you so many options and things that you can teach kids about giving and saving. And I love the fact that it gives you the complete control as the parent into kind of whether you allocate money for rewards and for recognition, and so, kind of how you give them access to that money. So I love this little app. It's one of my favourites. But I'm really excited to interview Will on the podcast today. And at the end of listening to this show, you will definitely have some much greater insight into aspects of pocket money and should we be giving pocket money, what the average kind of pocket money is that's given to kids in the UK, and also a little bit more about how the role of digital and the kind of fintech space at the moment can influence how we actually manage money. And I did ask Will a couple of personal questions, which he very willingly responded to, about how he's actually saving for his children or his son at the moment. He's got another baby on the way, and also some of the apps that he likes to use himself. So without further ado, a massive warm welcome to Will. So, hi Will, and a massive welcome to the In Her Financial Shoes podcast. How are you doing today?
Great, thanks. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for joining me. So for those of you who have not come across Rooster Money before, will have been really pleasantly delighted to hear about this particular app in my introduction. But Will and I have actually spoken before, haven't we, Will? I did an interview with you last year when I was interviewing on the Seclo Radio Sounds.
Indeed, yeah.
So it's a pleasure to have you, to speak with you again. So really, just if you could just introduce yourself, Will, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So I'm CEO of Rooster Money. I am based in London, although Rooster Money kind of operates across a number of countries. I am a dad of one, soon to be a dad of two.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, how exciting. When is your second baby due?
6 weeks' time. So.
So it's like the calm before the storm now, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. All the things that we should have done doing in the last 6 weeks.
I love that. I remember before we had our second son, and we were like, right, what are all the things that we didn't do well the first time round that we're definitely going to nail this time round? And then it all just kind of goes out the window again because you just want to get sleep.
Yes.
Oh, that's really exciting. So in terms of Rooster Money then, Will, can you just tell us a little bit about why did you start Rooster Money in the first place? Just tell us a little bit of a backstory about how Rooster Money came about.
Yeah, sure. So I think our mission at Rooster Money is to change the way the world talks about money with their children. Fundamentally believe that building confidence in money is so essential. It's something that we handle every single day. And Rooster Money is really designed as a framework to help parents have those positive conversations about money really early on. There's a huge amount of research saying kind of habit formation in money starts as young as 5, 6, 7. And actually, you can start these conversations early, and those habits will stick with you for the rest of your life. 40 to 44% of what we do every day is put down to habit. So it's a great opportunity to build some positive ones that will stick with you for life.
Yeah, I find that research fascinating. I know we talked about this on one of my previous shows with Rob Gardner, and I just find that incredible how we establish these habits at such a young age. 5 just seems so young, doesn't it, to be talking about money to our kids?
Yeah, I think so. But I find it extraordinary how children pick up language, how they pick up so many different skills, and how quickly they do that. When you think, I take a lot longer to pick up things now. And so I think that's a golden opportunity to start that early, and you're out at the shops, your children, you can see pick up transactions are happening and things are working, and therefore that's a great place to start.
So how would somebody start? So someone's listening to this that has young children of that kind of age. What would be some of your tips that you could give to the listeners as to how they would start to have those conversations with kids?
So I'm a firm believer in, the best lessons around money are contextual. So, those conversations that you have in the shops, if they're picking something up and they really want to get it, you can start explaining that they need to pay for that and how payments work and all those sorts of things long before you're actually giving them coins to do it. I think, those who start with reward charts, and that might be from like potty training or behavioral stuff. The concept that you're earning a reward, earning something and then redeeming a reward are the fundamentals of money management too. So you can start those lessons with stars and go from there. And, if you've got older siblings, again, the younger ones will pick up from them. Those are all kind of great ways to start.
So kind of starting on, so almost like this reward concept. So they achieve stars or stickers or whatever it is that I guess works for each individual child. And then what do you then exchange those reward points for money?
Or something else. So, maybe they're really keen to go and do something on a Saturday morning, and you can say, fine, well, that's going to be X number of stars to do that. And the nice thing is that as the bank, you can set your own exchange rate. Some parents might admit that they change the exchange rate based on whether they want their children to do that thing or not. But, I think that's the nice thing about it. So you don't have to do a direct exchange for money. And so on Rooster Money, we've got parents with 3 or 4 year olds who parents are using Rooster Money as a way to track the stars. It's nice and visual. And then you can turn around and go, okay, you've been, really good, or you've done these certain things, or you've achieved this thing. I'll give you a star. And then let's decide, do you want to get some stickers? It's 10 stars to get some stickers, or whatever it is. And that's the neat thing. But I guess stepping away from that, the home is full of lots of opportunities to create teachable moments about money. So, and that's at different ages. So yes, that's the younger age group. But when you are telling your kids to stop leaving the lights on when they're not in the room, you can start talking about the cost of electricity. You can start talking about utility bills. You can start talking to them about the concept of what a mortgage is, or that you go and earn money at work so that you can pay for various things at home. Those are all, like, again, golden opportunities to get kids starting to get engaged with money. And you can obviously bring in some of those concepts at different ages.
Yeah, I think what I really like about that concept as well is that it isn't necessarily related to just money as in money, physical money, because, and we can go on to talk about kind of pocket money. I know you've done a lot of research around pocket money. But actually, if you're talking to kids about, if you've done this, this and this, then you can have 10 stickers or 10 coins, and then you can exchange that to go and do something. What I like about that is actually you're talking to them about the concept of experiences rather than just money as in pounds and pence. And I think that's a really valuable lesson to learn at a very young age, because certainly when I grew up with money, it was more about the physical pounds rather than the experience. And so when I grew up, it was more about how much could I earn rather than actually what do I want to do with this money? Like, what's important to me? What do I enjoy doing? So I really like the fact that kind of brings that concept of exchanging time, almost like time for energy, time for things that you actually want to do in life and experiences.
And I think that's really true for adults as well, right? It's thinking about those end goals is really important rather than just the money itself. And ultimately, it's the context and the situation that turns an experience with money into either a negative situation or a positive one. So I think building confidence is about putting the money into the context of where you are, what you're doing, what is intrinsic value of something is another really interesting one to start talking to kids about. So it's, okay, it costs £10. Is it worth £10? That's always a fun one.
Do you think we as a society, we have too much focus on like products? So as in, I get tons of questions in my group about, do I save into a junior ISA, or I've got this child trust fund? Or do you think that there's perhaps a little bit too much focus on products and understanding products rather than understanding habits?
Well, I guess it's where you start. I think it's really important to start with, what do you want as an outcome with your money. So if you're thinking about, okay, I've got a bit of cash, or I'm wanting to put a regular bit aside every month, what do I eventually want to do with that? Because A, it helps having a goal to focus on, but B, it allows you to assess those products. There are lots of different products out there, and actually one of the reasons that I became interested in financial education was we did some research. I used to work for an ad agency for a bank, and we did research which showed that people had a fear factor about going and looking at different products because they were like, okay, I don't understand it, I'm not going to go with that. And I think it makes it much easier to assess, is this product right for me, if you know what the goal is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think that is a great place to start. And particularly for children, it's thinking about, as you suggested there, what are you actually saving for? So I guess for kids, it's going to be, are you having an account for them to just have pocket money that they can then go and maybe spend on some treats or a new toy or a reward of some description, versus are you saving or investing, I guess, for their financial future. And for me, I think it is important to understand the differences between saving and investing. What are your thoughts on that, Will? Do you think that there is misunderstanding about the differences between savings and investing? Do you think we maybe overanalyze that? What would you say around that topic?
I think so. This is in the kind of context for parents and saving and investing. Yeah. So I know and we've talked about this before. There's my perception that saving is a concept, investment is a type of savings. So you then have cash, or investment is something that perhaps has a slightly higher risk to it, but that risk is mitigated by a longer term horizon. You're likely to get more return over a period of time. So again, it kind of falls back to saying, well, what do I want to do with it? I think we know from research that saving for saving's sake is really hard. That kind of rainy day fund is usually the first thing raided. So again, attaching a goal to it, and also saying, okay, I'm going to put money towards helping in the university. I'm going to help towards my kids' deposit on a flat. Or, what's quite interesting is some like grandparents will say, well, I want to put a little bit of money aside so they've got something really fun for when they're 30, or for a nice honeymoon, or whatever it is. Having that goal then means that they can, okay, what's going to make sense? Putting something into an investment. And again, I'm not a financial advisor, but I think, some of the things you want to think about is how long-term or short-term. Is this a short-term nest egg, in which case an investment might go down quicker than cash? Well, obviously cash won't go down, or theoretically shouldn't go down. But I think that's where the interesting bit comes in.
Yeah, I think sometimes we can overcomplicate it, can't we? I mean, at the end of the day, as you've suggested, it's what are you saving for? If you're saving for something that the kids can spend in the next few years, then cash is great. But also, and again, I am an investment advisor, or I am a financial advisor, but obviously this podcast is just for generic advice or generic information. But I guess if you're looking at investing, then that's going to be, much longer term. But again, I think that the concept of risk puts a lot of people off. Just that word risk, people think, oh no, I don't want to take any risk, especially with my kids' money, so I'm just not going to even think about it. Do you think that we should be doing more work in that space to help consumers to feel more confident to invest?
Yeah, absolutely. Or I think confident in making the right choices for them. And that comes back to, the fundamentals of financial education and kids is building up confidence, as adults, so that we can make the right decisions. And, I think there's a really interesting opportunity, particularly when you're dealing with kids, to say, well, actually the horizon is 20 years or 30 years. So what can I do with that? And what are the different options? And understanding those options is the first stage, and then going, how does this fit with my plans is the second.
Yeah. Do you have any particular products or strategies that you would favour? So how do you say for your kids? Well, for your one child, soon to be two. Obviously not as a personal recommendation, but just as an insight into what you're doing right now for your child.
Yeah, so we looked at a few things. What we've decided to do is we put a little bit of money aside in a JISA for our little boy, and in part, that's because we wanted to ring fence something for him, and I guess working on the basis that then that's something in the future that, his grandparents are lucky enough that if they contribute, and that even he can contribute to it, and it's his pot. So that's kind of what we're doing at his stage. And then, I guess as parents, we're also thinking about childcare and making sure we've got enough, aside for all of those things too.
And so for those of people who haven't heard of a JISA, so that's a junior-based ISA, are you saving into cash or are you in stocks and shares?
So we put it into stocks and shares.
Yes. Yeah. Excellent. Not that I expected you to say that, but awesome. And How do you feel about the fact that then at age 18 that your son could then potentially inherit this little pot or big pot, depending on how much you're investing? How do you feel? Because I know that for a lot of parents, they don't like the idea of at age 18, if you're contributing to a junior ISA, I guess they're legally entitled to that money at 18, aren't they?
That's the conundrum, isn't it? Is, are they going to do something sensible with it, or are they going to go and, depending on how much you've contributed, or are they going to go and buy a flash TV or a car or something that you don't really want them to? I guess my personal challenge is that, given what I do, it's my mission to make sure that he makes some good choices around that. I think if you look at, so I certainly, people like Hargreaves Lansdown will say actually the majority convert into an adult ISA, but obviously that's not kind of whole of market. My view is, if you can actually, the big challenge is if you can get your kids engaged in it and they understand that it's there, so it doesn't just miraculously appear on their 18th birthday. Yeah. And that they understand who's contributed and what it's for and what a big opportunity that is, then they're building a relationship with that pot of money to then make some choices on it.
Yeah, to make some sensible decisions. And talking about money and sensible decisions, what impact do you think that giving kids pocket money has on their relationship with money?
So I think pocket money is this amazing vehicle for kickstarting conversations about money. And, everyone's busy. You're whizzing around. How do you kind of get into a routine where you are talking about money? Well, pocket money can be one of those things. So ring fencing a little, and I'll caveat this with, a lot of people go, well, I can't afford to give pocket money. Well, look, you can ring fence a little bit of budget that if you're spending it on your kids anyway, maybe you can empower them to do it that way. But either way, giving them a little bit of money, letting them make some choices around it and what they want to do with it, and being involved as a parent so you can have conversations with them about that, will just start those conversations happening. We'll get them thinking about saving. We'll get them thinking about creating goals, even thinking objectively, okay, I've got some money. Am I going to buy this thing, my pair of trainers, or am I going to save up for longer and get my Lego Death Star that I really want? And it's opportunity cost. It's understanding that you can't have instant gratification in reality. It's understanding that, as I said, that kind of intrinsic value. What is this thing actually worth? And pocket money can do that. And on a practical level, it can make your life as a parent easier, because they want to get that magazine with a plastic toy on the front in the supermarket, rather than you having to say no because you bought them something already. You can actually say, okay, do you really want to get that? How much pocket money have you got? It's going to come out of that. You're empowering the children to make a choice. If they want to get it, great, they made the choice, and they might learn afterwards that was a waste of money. And if not, it means that they're not kind of pestering you.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so I've got two boys, and my eldest is such a spender, and my youngest is a saver. So it's really hard actually to encourage my little one to part with any of his money. He always just wants to save it in his piggy bank. And so we have like 3 pots for our boys. We have a spending pot, a giving pot, and a spending, saving, and investing pot. And we kind of have a giving pot as well. I won't talk about that right now, but we'll talk about that another time. But yeah, my kids have different pots. So for my youngest, he never wants to spend money. But when we go into a shop and my eldest sees something, he always wants to spend. So we do use pocket money in a way that enables him to make that decision. And quite often he regrets it, because he's like, oh, I really wish, but I've been saving for this, this Switch game or something that's £40, and he's just spent £2.50 on a magazine. So I think it does encourage really good behaviours. You did an interesting piece of research on this as well recently, didn't you? Around so for 2018, kids got an average of £254 of pocket money, and they saved 39% of it. That seems like really high in comparison to the average adult savings.
Yeah. I love it in the sense that I think it's we produce something called the Pocket Money Index, which you can see on the Rooster Money site, and that talks about what's the average pocket money given. So I think the average a week's sort of £4.88. That obviously kind of stems from a 7-year-old who might be on £4 going up to £7.50 for a 14-year-old. But it looks at lots of different insights. What are they saving for? How much are they putting into a saving pot, etc. And it's great. So we have this concept of spend, save, give. You can switch on different pots in Rooster Money, and kids save. So there's nearly 40% of the pocket money that they earn, they save. They don't spend it, and it shows the power at an early age that with a little bit of nudging, kids will go off and actually start building those habits around putting a little bit of money aside, or they're setting it towards a much bigger goal. I think that's, against, obviously they don't have a mortgage or utilities or running the car or all those sorts of things. So they're not dealing with those realities as an adult. But if you can emphasize those things at the younger age, then that means that they're considerations when they're older.
And do you think that the digital influence impacts on that too? Because I guess if it's visual, I'm just going back to like our days where we had physical piggy banks and we've just put money into this pot, and unless we emptied it out and counted it, we didn't really know how much we had available. Whereas I guess with the digital world now, it makes it so much easier for us to understand, how much is in our pot. Shall we allocate X amount into a spending pot and X amount into a savings pot? So do you think that the digital influence has enabled that for that kind of experience and those habits to be easier than perhaps it was 20 years ago?
Yeah, I think it's a double-edged sword. Technology is a huge enabler around money, and the World Bank has cited technology as being the biggest opportunity to help address poverty, access to money, all sorts of things globally. And I think the fact that we can now open an app and see our money immediately there rather than wait for a statement to come through the post or go to an ATM, that's hugely empowering. And I think for kids, a pocket money jar that sits at home isn't on the school run with you. It's not on holiday with you. You don't actually, you've got to count it all out to know how much there is. So absolutely, it is a big enabler for that. Our relationship with technology and money has also abstracted our relationship in some ways. So it's a bit less tangible. You can easily go for a week without actually touching physical cash. You can pay in a myriad of different ways. You can now pay in crypto. You've got a PayPal account. You've got you can pay on your phone or your watch. So I think that's the challenge, and building that connection, and it's something that we have to be aware of. And I guess that's why you've seen a rise in kind of aggregation apps and things for adults, because we're managing our money all over the place. And actually you need to bring it into a central view.
And do you have any particular apps that you would use to help you manage your money?
Well, I experiment with a lot. I think, I think a lot of the new banks that are coming out have got some really great features. Monzo, Starling. There are quite a few aggregators like Emma or Yolt that are really interesting as well, bringing together your different accounts. I think all of them have lots of benefits. I think you have to be aware that they might not give you all the coverage that you need. But yeah, that is the exciting thing with the App Store at the moment. You can go and find an app for pretty much every element of money management. I think that's another thing, right? Is that you can open an account with someone very quickly. You can open an investment product, into an ETF really easily. So, something that requires a minimum deposit. You need the foundation and the confidence to assess, is this, just because it's easy to sign up to, is this right for me?
Yeah. Yeah, and so for ETFs, so we don't use jargon on this show. ETF is an
Sorry.
exchange-traded fund. We're going to cover more about that in some future episodes in this series. But no, I'm joking around, Will, with you. But yeah, you're right. I think there are. It's very easy to make investment decisions now with the advancement of technology, but that can also add another added layer of complication in that it's too easy sometimes, and that makes that decision harder to know, well, should I be investing over here versus should I be investing over here? So yeah, I think you're right. There's this kind of the digital products and digital influence enable us to make better decisions and easier decisions, but then can sometimes make things more difficult too. So what's next for Rooster Money, Will? What's next on the agenda in terms of things that you're empowering in terms of your mission, your research? What's next for Rooster Money?
Yeah, so we've spent the last kind of couple of years building out the products, and we've got a couple more exciting features that we're adding, but we've now got the fundamentals in place, which is great. Rooster Money kind of operates its main kind of markets, the UK, US, and Australia. But what's amazing is we've got nearly 51 currencies being used in the app, everywhere from Uganda to Thailand to the Netherlands. And so, you know, we're focused a lot on making our product work against our mission of positive conversations around the world on money, which sounds very grand, but basically it means sort of scaling what we're doing and making sure that we're listening to our users and building something that can work for everyone, whether they want to award chores or not, whether they want to give. So we've teamed up with Just Giving, so donations can be made through the app. If you want your kids to put some money, in savings pot, then parents can apply their own interest rates. So I think the average is 9% that parents pay.
Is that right?
Yeah. So, I think it's really great seeing it come alive. And yeah, we're focused on that mission.
Fabulous. And I will pop a link actually in the show notes, because I have a special link that you guys have given me to give Money Panel listeners, which is the name of my brand, access to some of the features in the Plus range for 3 months. So I'll pop the link in the show notes afterwards for anyone who hasn't come across Rooster Money. And then just finally, Will, just to kind of wrap up the show, what would you say is your favourite app on your phone right now? A couple of fun questions to finish.
Oh, that's tricky. That's tricky. I'm just looking. I work in technology, so hence I have really boring ones on there. But I think I listen to a lot of Spotify. I use Monzo as a bank, so that's a heavily used app. I obviously own Rooster Money quite a lot. So those are my main ones that I've got. And I downloaded a really good app called Bandimal, which I enjoy with my son, and you can make lots of exciting sounds combining different animal noises. So if you're looking for something a bit less sensible, I can recommend Bandimal.
But Bandimal, as in animal.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, great. I'll have a look at that one. I'm sure my boys will like that one. And what about a favourite Netflix show right now? What's on or a series? Are you into the new, what's the new one that's just come out last night? The medieval one. My husband's into it, but I can't think what it's called now. I can't remember what it's called. You're
asking the wrong person. I have to admit, I'm deeply uncool, but I'm massively into Suits. That's being Harvey Specter, that's fun. So
yeah, amazing. No, I love that. That's great. Fabulous. Well, I'm conscious that I know you've got to go, Will. So off to your next meeting. So I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm sure we'll have you back on the show in future series, talk about other bits and pieces. But thank you so much for sharing some of that information, because I think that the concept of pocket money, how we can teach kids about money and how we can start doing that at a young age is is really important, because actually if we get some of those things right, then we can create some really great habits for kids, so that as they grow up, as you say, it isn't quite such a taboo subject, because you've spoken to them about it as they've grown up. And even if it's not specifically talking to them about how much you earn or how much the bills cost, it's just the concept of saving and giving and investing, I think, is really valuable.
Exactly. And I think actually, one of the interesting things is as a parent, when you're talking to your kids about a subject, whether it's money or otherwise, you start thinking about your own confidence in money and how you manage it. So it becomes a great topic for the whole family and turning it into a positive thing. Thanks so much for having me on the show. And we've done a bunch of guides on the Rooster Money website under resources around talking to your kids about needs and wants, about compound interest, and also some of those things that you mentioned about JICEs. So if anyone's interested, I can recommend those.
Yeah, fabulous. I'll pop a link directly to those in the resources. So for anyone who's listening to this podcast episode, we actually put this into a blog every week as well. So if you're listening to this when you're in the car or you're out on a dog walk and you haven't got pen and paper, then if you just go into the show notes or onto the Money Panel's website, so www.themoneypanel.co.uk, click into podcasts, and then we actually transcribe this into a podcast, so you can grab the links from there. So we'll put those links to those resources in there. Will, that'll be super.
Great.
Thank you very much. So thanks very much for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, likewise.
Thanks very much for listening to the show. I just wanted to finish this by just giving you a little bit of an insight into junior ISAs, as we just did kind of reference those in the interview. So I just wanted to explain exactly what a junior ISA is. Now, a junior ISA is basically a form of saving for a child who is under 18 and lives in the UK. Now, you have two types of junior ISAs. You have cash junior ISAs and stocks and share junior ISAs. Now, any adult, any parent or legal guardian can open the junior ISA. That's kind of one important factor to bear in mind. As a grandparent, it would need to be the legal guardian or the child's parent that would have to open up the junior ISA on their behalf, and obviously then you could contribute to that. The money belongs to the child, but they can't actually access it until they're aged 18, apart from in sort of certain exceptional circumstances. But they can start also managing that money from the age of 16. Now, that's really important to think about, because for many parents, they don't necessarily want their child to have access to money at the age of 16 or 18. Certainly when my boys turn 16 or 18, they're probably not going to be in the best frame of mind to make decisions about what to do with that pot of money. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that I won't open a junior ISA, but it will also mean and encourage me to actually have some conversations with them about it first, so that it's not just suddenly plonked on their lap when they're at that quite influential age. So that's something to sort of bear in mind. The junior ISA limit for this tax year, as we've just come into a new tax year, is just over £4,000. So it's £4,368. Very odd amount. Don't know why they can't just make it an even memorable number, but there you go. And that essentially is put into an ISA, and it's held on trust for the child. Now, the benefit of it being an ISA is that there's no tax to pay. So that money can grow. If it's in cash, it will obviously gain interest. If it's invested, it will have investment gains, and that will grow completely tax-free. Doesn't need to be put on things like tax returns, because it belongs to the child, not to you. So in terms of whether you should be investing in cash or stocks and shares, obviously this podcast is just to give you some guidance and confidence to make these kind of decisions for yourself. This isn't to be taken as financial advice, but generally cash-based ISAs are great if you're just looking for a home for that money to earn a little bit of interest over a period of time. But thinking about the age of your child right now, if your child is very young and you want them to have access to this when they're 18, then the likelihood is you're going to be saving for a fair amount of time, at least probably 15, 16, 17 years, depending on how old they are when you set these up. So one of the downsides of keeping that money in cash is the risk of inflation. So if inflation is at, let's say, 2.5%, so that's the cost of living, things that we're spending our money on, is going up by 2.5% each year, and your junior cash ISA is paying, let's say, 2% a year, then in reality, although you're getting 2% every year on that ISA that's compounded over the years, that's rolled up every year, it's not really growing in line with the things that potentially your child is going to be spending that money on in 10, 15 years' time. So that's the downside of having money in cash. Stocks and shares ISAs are the ability to have that money invested in shares of profits from companies. And we'll talk more about how this kind of concept of investing works later in the series. But in general principle, when you're investing in the stock market, you're investing in profits of organisations. And we're not talking about putting all your money into one company like Apple and seeing whether Apple shares go up or down and then seeing whether your pot of money goes up or down. In reality, when you invest into a junior ISA, they are funds that are very, very well diversified. They've got all sorts of different types of investments and companies in there. So you might have exposure to a good number, hundreds and hundreds of companies. So some of them are going up, some of them are going down. That's just the nature of investments. But if you think about it from a time perspective, investments do work very cyclical. So, if you take any 10-year period of investing in the stock market has always performed better than cash over any 10-year period, despite all the crashes, all the booms that we've had in the markets. So don't dismiss necessarily investing in stocks and shares. You can clearly tell that I'm more favourable of stocks and shares, junior ISAs, than I am of cash ISAs. But generally that is because you've got to think about the purpose of what you're saving for in the first place. And as Will and I were discussing in this episode, it's important to think about the purpose first and the goal first, rather than the product first. So just something to leave you with there. So that's a little bit more about junior ISAs. We will be talking more about other types of investing and saving vehicles later in the episodes. But that's just a little bit of information for you to weigh up some decisions about how you should be investing for your kids. So I hope you've enjoyed this interview. If you've had any questions that have popped up for you, please feel free to get in contact with me, either via the Facebook community. So if you hop onto Facebook, find the Money Panel, and then you can jump into the group there. Or indeed, you can send me a tweet at the Money Panel, or you can pop me an email across at hello@themoneypanel.co.uk. And if you have enjoyed listening to this episode today, I'd really appreciate a review on iTunes or Spotify, whatever you're listening on. The reason I keep kind of plugging the reviews is because the more reviews I get on the show, the more people will see it, the more people will listen to it, and the more that helps me to really focus in on my mission, which is to equip and empower as many women to be financially resilient at every stage of their life. So that really helps me to build my mission and purpose in the world. So thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you again next week.